You were kind. That's where it started, didn't it? You thought showing up with a good heart would mean something in this twisted little circus they call society. You gave, you listened, you stayed when everyone else walked, and they took that softness and turned it into a target. Yeah. They saw you sitting there, patient, forgiving, calm, and they thought, this one's weak, this one's breakable. But they had no idea what kind of monster they were breeding in silence. No idea what kind of storm you were holding back just to keep the peace. You held it in, hoping they'd understand your silence, hoping they'd recognize the weight you were carrying, just to stay kind in a world that only responds to cruelty. They didn't, though. Nah. They took that kindness and carved their names into your patience like it was a punching bag. Every smile you gave, they called it desperate. Every sacrifice, they called it foolish. Every damn time you chose peace over ego, they took it as fear. That's the sickness of this place. They don't respect calm until chaos walks in wearing your face. And now they're about to see it. You spent too long biting your tongue, too long holding your fire, too long praying that love would teach them what pain couldn't. But here's the truth. Love doesn't fix everything. Sometimes love is just the reason you stayed too long in a place you should have burned to the ground. And now you're tired, aren't you? You're tired of being the one who always bends. Tired of being the reason they feel comfortable crossing lines you never would. That's what happens when you carry peace in your hands. People mistake it for surrender. They think silence means you don't know how to scream. They think being calm means you ain't capable of war. But kindness, real kindness, it's not the absence of strength, it's the control of it. You had every chance to destroy them. You had every reason, but you didn't. You chose to keep it civil, keep it decent, keep it quiet, and they thought that meant they won. They didn't. See, they don't understand the kind of rage that lives in a kind soul. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It doesn't throw punches just to feel seen. It waits, it watches, it collects receipts, and when the time comes, it doesn't scream. It ends things. They mistook your mercy for permission. They thought because you didn't react, they were untouchable. That because you didn't strike back, you were scared. But fear has never been the reason you held back. Discipline was. Character was. Respect was. But now they've burned every inch of that respect. They spit on the grace you gave, thinking it'd never dry up. Thinking you'd always be the one saying, "It's okay," but it ain't okay anymore. You reached your limit. And when people like you break, oh, they don't just walk away. They vanish. They become ghosts that haunt every mistake the other person ever made. You leave without warnings, without speeches, without looking back. And that silence, it eats them alive, because nothing destroys a guilty soul faster than a silent one who used to care. That's the punishment, right there. You don't need revenge. You don't need payback. Your absence is the punishment. Your glow up, your peace, your silence. That's what makes them unravel. Because now they see you thriving without them. Now they know they never deserved what they lost. They thought you'd never stop giving, never stop showing up, never stop saving them from themselves. But you finally realized you were drowning just to keep them afloat, and you let go. Now they'll learn. They'll learn what it feels like to reach out and find emptiness, to beg for a presence they once ignored, to remember every kindness you gave, and know they can't get it back. That's the pain they earned. And you're free. You're done explaining yourself. You're done shrinking for people who never deserved the full size of your soul. You're not here to fix anyone anymore. You're here to build yourself from the ashes they thought they buried you in. So let them laugh. Let them lie. Let them play the victim. Because behind closed doors, they know the truth. They know who you were. They know what they lost. And every time they see you shining without them, it stings. That's the power of the kind one who finally stopped being soft. That's the storm they never thought would come, and now it's here. Cold, quiet, unapologetic. They won't say it out loud. No, their ego's too swollen for that. But behind that fake smile, behind every dry joke and dismissive glance, they're panicking. You see, they didn't plan for this version of you. The one that walks like he owes no one a damn thing. The one who doesn't chase, doesn't check in, doesn't care whether they're okay or not. And that silence, it's got them sweating. Because for the first time, they're realizing something brutal. You were the one holding everything together. All those nights they felt important, loved, seen. That was you. You poured your time, your loyalty, your attention into a well that never even thanked you. You were the warmth in a cold world, and they treated you like a lighter in the rain. Temporary, replaceable, disposable. But now, the fire's gone, and they're standing in the dark, trying to remember how it felt to be near someone who actually gave a damn. People like them don't value the real ones until it's too late. They're addicted to the thrill, the chase, the chaos. They want attention they didn't earn. They want loyalty they didn't build. And when they find someone solid, someone rare, someone real, they abuse it. Why? Because they think it'll last forever. Because they think you'll always be there, no matter how many times they forget you, disrespect you, or make you question your worth. But guess what? You're not God. You're not infinite. You're a human being with limits, and they found yours. They pushed too far, took too much, played too many games, And now you're gone. Not physically, maybe, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You've already packed your bags, already burned the bridge they kept dancing on like it was a stage. And here's the most twisted part. They'll blame you. Oh, they'll tell everyone you changed, that you switched up, that you were never really real to begin with. Because accountability, that would kill them. Looking in the mirror and seeing the villain? Nah, they'd rather paint you as the bad guy, the cold one, the heartless one. And that's fine. Let them. Because the truth doesn't need defending. It just waits. Waits for the day they're alone with their thoughts, scrolling through old messages, staring at pictures that don't smile back, replaying your voice in their head like a ghost they can't exorcise. That's your justice. Not revenge, not arguments, absence. Your absence becomes the loudest sound they hear. It screams through the silence they thought they wanted. See, most people don't want love. They want control. They don't want loyalty. They want power. They want to know that no matter how badly they treat you, you'll keep showing up, keep answering, keep forgiving. And you did, for a while. But you're not a doormat. You're not built to be stepped on just so someone else can reach the door. You were the door. You were the one opening up opportunities, comfort, safety. And they slammed you shut like you were just another option. Well, guess what? Options expire. And now they don't get access to your light anymore. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them a final talk. Some things end with silence. And that silence? It's sacred. It's your healing. It's your boundary dressed in shadows. Don't let that guilt creep in either. That little voice whispering, maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should have said goodbye. Number, you tried. You gave. You warned them without words. You showed them what they were losing in every quiet disappointment, in every second chance, in every tear you wiped alone while they laughed somewhere else. They knew. Don't ever think they didn't know. They just didn't care. Until now. Now, when it's too late. Now, and when you've moved different. Now when you don't text back in 5 minutes. Now when you ain't explaining your silence anymore. That's the lesson they earned. That's the pain they cooked for themselves. You, on the other hand, you're becoming dangerous. Not because you're violent, not because you seek revenge, but because you've stopped explaining your worth. You've stopped giving discounts on your loyalty. You've stopped handing out pieces of your soul like party favors to people who wouldn't even show up if you were bleeding. That's real power. Not noise, not drama, but detachment. You don't beg anymore. You don't chase anymore. You don't prove anymore. And that makes you unstoppable. Because a man with nothing left to lose, a man who's already buried his pain, he's not afraid of being alone. He embraces it. He thrives in it. And when he rises, oh, he doesn't rise for applause. He rises in silence, and the world shakes without warning. They're not scared of the loud ones. They're used to noise. They know how to argue, how to manipulate, how to twist your words and flip the blame. But the silent ones, the ones who vanish without drama, that's who keeps them up at night. Because silence doesn't give them closure. It doesn't give them control. It leaves them spinning, guessing, haunted. That's what you've become now. A ghost with unfinished business. Not because you're coming back, but because they never really saw you when you were there. They thought your patience was a leash, thought your love was something they owned. And now that it's gone, now that the energy is cut off like power in a storm, they're starting to see the cost of what they wasted. But the tab's already been paid, and the price was you. You're not the same anymore. They can feel it. That glow in your eye is different now. Not desperate, not waiting, but knowing. Knowing your value, knowing your silence is more powerful than their noise ever was. You stopped speaking because you realized talking to them was like screaming into a grave. Nothing echoes back but your own pain. And you finally had enough. You got up, brushed off the dust, and walked, not for revenge, not to make them miss you, but because staying was killing you slowly. That's the part they'll never understand. You didn't leave because you stopped caring. You left because they did. Because you got tired of giving CPR to a connection that flatlined long ago. And now they're learning, not from words, not from lectures, but from the cold space where your warmth used to be. That's how people like them learn, through loss. Not the kind that comes with funerals, but the kind that lives while you're still breathing. The kind where they know they'll never get you back. Not because you hate them, not because you want them to suffer, but because they didn't value you when you were available. That's the lesson carved into the silence. That's the truth they'll replay every night. And the worst part, they'll try to replace you. Try to fill that space with noise, distractions, people who look like you but don't carry what you carried. And they'll fail every time. Because nothing tastes the same once you've lost the real thing. You were the real thing, the solid one, the steady one, the rare one. You didn't fake it. You didn't flinch. You didn't fold when they came broken. You held them, and they crushed you. Now, you're done being their emotional support while they give you their worst. Done being the rehab for people who have no intention of healing. And it's beautiful, this version of you. Calm, dangerous, unbothered, because you finally realized that not everyone deserves to hear your story. Not everyone's earned the right to stand in your light. You're not here to prove your worth anymore. You are the worth. You're not here to be chosen. You're the prize. And if they fumbled you, that's not your burden to carry. That's their loss to drown in. They'll try to crawl back eventually. They always do. Some come with apologies. Some come with excuses. Most come with nothing but the same bad energy wrapped in a different tone. But you won't even answer the door, because you've rebuilt yourself in silence. You've turned your pain into armor. You've learned that peace isn't found in other people. It's forged in solitude. And now you don't react. You observe. You don't seek closure. You accept the ending. You don't chase answers. You let the questions rot in the mouths of those who created them. That's power. That's growth. That's the cold, quiet storm they never expected. And it's already here. Let them feel it. Let them sit with the silence they created. Don't rush to fill the void they now swim in. Let them drown in it. That silence you gave them, it's not revenge. It's not hate. It's the final mercy from someone who spent too long bleeding for people who only knew how to take. You were their shelter. But shelters collapse when no one maintains them. You were the mirror, and they shattered it because they couldn't face their own reflection. And now, there's no more safety net, no more answers, no more soft voice calming their chaos, just the emptiness they carved with their own hands, and the echo of every warning they ignored. People always underestimate the quiet ones, the ones who love deeply, who give gently, who listen before speaking. But that's the mistake. You see, quiet doesn't mean clueless. Kind doesn't mean blind. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetful. You saw everything. You just hoped they'd change. You just wanted to believe in the version of them that existed only in your imagination. That's the hardest part, isn't it? Not grieving who they were, but grieving who you thought they could be. You gave them the benefit of the doubt, time after time, thinking maybe, just maybe, they'd meet you halfway. But they didn't. They watched you carry everything. They watched you fight for a connection they wouldn't even lift a finger to save. And now you're gone. And they're realizing just how much weight you were holding in silence. But that's the thing about silence. It's not empty. It's full of answers. Full of screams you refuse to let out. Full of truths you buried to protect people who never protected you. It's the language of the broken who finally got tired of explaining their pain. And now you speak it fluently. You walk into rooms different now. Not angry, not bitter, just aware. Aware of who's real, who's temporary, who only comes around when they need something, and most importantly, who never deserved access to the parts of you that took years to build. You've become selective with your energy. Cold, not cruel. Distant, not disloyal. They call it change, but it's not. It's healing. You're healing from every time you apologized just to keep the peace. From every time you stayed quiet while they tore pieces off you. From every night you couldn't sleep, wondering why love always feels like war. And slowly, that pain turned into power. You stopped reaching, stopped waiting, stopped believing that your worth depended on how much you could endure. And once you stopped begging for bare minimum, you realized how many people were only around because you let them stay. Now the doors are locked, the lights are off, and your silence is the only thing left, echoing through the walls they used to call home. That's not abandonment. That's self-respect. You're not here to teach people how to treat you anymore. That class is closed. Those lessons were written in scars. They had their chance, and they wasted it, thinking you'd always be too kind to leave. But kindness isn't weakness. It's restraint. And once it's gone, there's no going back. You don't resurrect bridges that were burned on purpose. You don't rebuild what was never built for you. You walk. You rebuild yourself, brick by brick, quietly, proudly, alone if you have to, because the real ones, they don't need noise. They don't need applause. They don't need validation. They just rise. And that's what you're doing now. Not for revenge, not for recognition, but because you finally understand you were never weak. You were patient. And now that patience has run out, so has their time. You stopped watering dead flowers, and now they're screaming at the drought. But you don't owe them water. You don't owe them shade. You don't owe them a single drop of the soul they once bathed in like it was eternal. Because let's be real, they didn't want you. They wanted your energy, your effort, your loyalty, your attention, all the invisible things they thought came for free. But there was a price. There was always a price. And it was paid in pieces of you. Pieces you'll never get back. Time, sanity, confidence, gone. You drained yourself trying to fill someone who had holes in places you couldn't see. You tried to heal what wasn't yours to heal. You tried to love through wounds that weren't your fault. And they let you. Worse, they expected you to. That's the twisted part. They didn't just accept your sacrifice. They built comfort on top of it. They grew entitled to your love, your apologies, your silence, as if you owed them pain wrapped in politeness. But you've learned. You've changed. That soft heart, still beating, still full of warmth. But it's guarded now. Selective. No longer wide open to anyone with a good smile and bad intentions. You learn to stop bleeding for those who'd watch you die and call it your fault. That's not bitterness, that's evolution. That's the consequence of being the one who always showed up. Because eventually, even the strongest soul gets tired of showing up for people who would never do the same. They'll say you changed. Let them. They'll say you're cold now. Let them choke on that sentence. They never saw the heat it took to keep your kindness alive, the internal fires you had to put out just to stay gentle. You wore a smile when your world was falling apart. You gave comfort when you had none for yourself. You helped people stand while you were crawling. That's the kind of strength they'll never understand. Because to them, strength was loud, screaming, controlling, dominating. But your strength? Your strength was choosing not to become like them, choosing to stay real, choosing to stay kind, until you couldn't anymore, until their ignorance drowned out your patience, until your silence became the only thing left that still respected you. You don't have to explain your growth. You don't have to justify your boundaries. You don't have to keep explaining to people why they're not allowed back into your life. If they cared, they would have protected their place in it. Simple. Life's not a courtroom, and you're not on trial. You're just done. Done explaining what should have been obvious. Done forgiving what was never sorry. Done pretending the pain didn't change you, because it did. It carved you, shaped you, hardened you. And now you walk different, talk different, love different. You know your worth, not because someone told you, but because you found it buried under all the pieces of yourself you gave away for free. So don't go back. Don't open doors you had to crawl away from. Don't romanticize the people who made healing necessary. You don't owe them a sequel. You don't owe them your healing. The version of you they knew no longer exists. That version died the moment they thought hurting you had no consequence. What's left now is sharper, wiser, colder, and still somehow kinder. But only to those who earned it. That's the new law. No more giving out chances like candy. No more fixing broken people while you fall apart. No more being the hero in stories where you're the one always left behind. Because you've seen the truth now. They mistook your kindness for weakness. But it wasn't weakness. It was restraint. And now that the restraint is gone, they're going to learn what you were really capable of all along. Now, they're watching you from the sidelines, pretending not to care, pretending their world isn't quieter without your voice in it. But silence has a weight, and yours is suffocating them. They scroll past your name like it doesn't hit them in the chest. They laugh in public, but it doesn't reach their eyes anymore, because somewhere in the back of their mind, they know they had something rare, not perfect, not flawless, but real, and they'll never find that again. Not in 100 fake conversations, not in the arms of someone who only wants their body but couldn't care less about their mind. Not in the noise they run to just to drown out the absence of you. But don't wait for their regret. Don't sit around hoping they'll realize what they lost. That's not your job. Regret is their teacher now. Let it do its job. Your job is to build, to rise, to keep becoming the version of yourself that would make your past self proud and your future enemies nervous. Let your success be the echo that fills every room they enter. Let your peace be the reminder that they never had power over you. They only had access, and access, once revoked, is never given back. You don't loan out your soul to people who couldn't even handle your silence. You don't explain yourself to those who twisted every word. You walk, and you don't look back. Because here's the ugly truth. The ones who mistook your kindness for weakness, they never knew you. They only knew the version of you that made their life easier, the version that forgave too fast, that stayed too long, that explained too much. But the real you, the uncut version, the one that walks with fire in their veins and scars, that tells stories no one bothered to ask about, they never even met that version, and now they don't get to. That version is for people who understand that love is a privilege, not a playground. That loyalty is expensive, and it's never sold on clearance. That version, that's reserved for those who bring peace, not chaos. You see, life has a way of flipping the script when you least expect it. One day, you're the one begging to be seen, and the next, they're begging for your attention. But you're not the same anymore. You don't chase, you choose. You don't argue, you detach. You don't explain, you exit. That's not cruelty, that's evolution. And they'll call it cold. They'll say you changed. But you didn't change. You remembered who you were before the world told you to water down your fire just to keep others comfortable. And now you're living in your truth, boldly, quietly, unshakably. And here's the final twist. They'll still try to come back. Oh. Not because they've changed, not because they suddenly grew the heart you prayed they'd grow, but because they miss the version of themselves that existed when you loved them. You made them feel valuable. You made them feel seen. And now, without you, they're just another face in a crowd of cheap attention and shallow conversations. But that door, it's gone, burned with every lie, every betrayal, every silent night you cried while they slept peacefully. You don't owe them one more second, not one more reply, not one more explanation. Let them feel the weight of losing someone who only ever wanted to see them win. Let them sit in the silence and try to figure out how the hell they let something so real slip through their hands. You don't owe them revenge. You owe yourself peace. You don't need closure. They were the closure. You just needed to stop knocking on a door that only opened when it was convenient for them. And now you build a new door, one they can't find, one they'll never have the key to again. You didn't lose them, they lost you, and they'll never recover from it. There's a strange kind of silence that follows real growth. The kind where you stop responding to disrespect. Stop fighting to prove your side. Stop waiting for them to understand what they were never willing to see. That's where you are now. Not bitter, not broken, just done. And that scares them more than any angry message ever could. Because anger, they understand. Anger means you still care. But silence? That's the funeral. That's when the game ends. That's when they realized they weren't dealing with weakness. They were dealing with mercy. And now, the mercy is gone. That's what hits hardest. Not your rage, not your revenge, but the fact that you're finally free. And they're still chained to the memory of you. They won't say it, but they check your profile more than they'll admit. They scan for signs. Who are you with? Are you happy? Have you moved on? But they'll never reach out. Not with honesty. They'll reach out with a joke, a meme, hey, just checking in. Because anything deeper would expose the truth. They need you more than they ever let on. But you've grown now. You see through the surface. You read the tone behind the text. You feel the hollowness in their words. You don't respond because you're not hungry for crumbs anymore. You once dined on half effort and called it love. Now you feast on solitude and call it peace. You didn't walk away because you stopped loving them. You walked away because they were starving your love, draining it, disrespecting it. And the irony? You wanted to stay. You wanted to grow with them, build with them, fight for something real. But love without effort isn't love. It's manipulation. They gave you inconsistency and called it balance. Gave you breadcrumbs and called it support. Gave you just enough to keep you hoping, but never enough to keep you whole. And you're not starving anymore. You've fed yourself truth. You've filled the emptiness they left with power. Real, internal, untouchable power. And now your silence isn't absence. Inte ens churchsändes. A monument to everything you had to destroy in yourself just to survive them. Because sometimes survival means becoming unrecognizable. You've changed. And that change didn't come from comfort. It came from pain. Deep, soul-wrecking, tear-soaked pain. The kind that cracks you open and forces you to rebuild from the inside out. You don't laugh like you used to. Don't trust like you used to. Don't love like you used to. Because now you understand what it costs. And you'll never again invest in someone who doesn't know how to protect what they're given. They thought your heart was a vending machine. Push a few buttons, get what they want. But you were never that. You were a cathedral, sacred, quiet, and deserving of reverence. They just walked in with muddy shoes and graffiti markers, thinking they were special. Now they sit outside, staring at the locked doors, wondering why it all feels colder, why nothing feels right anymore. It's because you were the warmth, you were the soul, you were the part that made it all feel like home. And now they're homeless, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, drifting between people who mimic your attention but lack your depth. And they'll pretend they're okay. They'll post smiles, new relationships, loud distractions. But at night when the noise fades and the lights go out, they'll feel it. That ache, that void, that brutal reminder. They lost someone who was ready to love them in ways they weren't even ready to receive. And that's not your burden anymore. You've cried your last tear for people who mistook your light for a spotlight, something to stand in, to perform under, never realizing you were burning just to keep them warm. That chapter's over. Burn the pages. Write new ones. Quiet ones. Strong ones. Stories where you are the hero, not the sacrifice. Where you don't beg to be understood. You demand to be respected. That's who you are now. Not a victim, not a survivor, but a warrior who stopped asking to be saved and learned how to save himself. They'll never admit it, but deep down, they always knew you were too good for them. That's why they tried to dim your light. That's why they mocked your softness, picked at your flaws, made you question your own value. It wasn't because you lacked anything. It was because you carried everything they didn't. You had heart, depth, patience, loyalty. You had this raw kind of love that didn't ask for anything but honesty, and that terrified them. Because people like that, they know they can't match it. They know they can't rise to your level. So instead, they try to drag you down to theirs. They confuse your calm with weakness, your forgiveness with stupidity, your loyalty with desperation. But you're done now. You finally see it. The problem was never your heart. It was where you placed it. You were building futures in your mind while they were busy destroying the present. You were thinking long term, sacrificing, making moves with both of you in mind. But they were playing games, keeping you close enough to feel needed, but far enough to never give you security. That kind of behavior, it doesn't come from love. It comes from fear. Fear that if they gave you what you actually deserved, they'd lose their power. Because you loved them, and they loved your love more than they ever loved you. They got high off your devotion, drunk off your sacrifice, until one day you woke up and the bottle was empty, and they were left standing there, confused, broken, sober, with no idea how to function without the energy you used to pour into them. Now, they walk through the same world you once navigated together, but it feels colder. It is colder because you're no longer there to fill the space, no longer there to ask, did you eat? No longer there to calm their storms or silence their insecurities with nothing but presence. And that absence, that's the part they'll feel forever. Because it's not just the person they lost, it's the experience. The experience of being understood without judgment, loved without conditions, supported without price, and they'll search. Believe me, they'll search for it in others, in strangers, in new faces. But what you gave, that was once in a lifetime, and once it's gone, it's gone. You gave them everything they needed to become better, and they used it to stay the same. And now they suffer. quietly. Because no matter how loud they pretend to be, no matter how many people they surround themselves with, none of it replaces what was real. You can't replace someone who gave you soul when all you brought was skin. You can't replace someone who saw you when you didn't even see yourself. You can't replace someone who held your hand through chaos and loved you through your silence, through your flaws, through your ugly. They'll figure that out one day. Maybe they already have. Maybe they stare at your name and hesitate to call because they know they don't deserve your voice anymore. But don't wait for that day. Don't wait for them to get it. Live like they never will. Move like they've already been replaced. Not by someone else, but by yourself. You replaced the version of you that begged to be seen with the version that knows he doesn't need permission to shine. You replaced the part of you that feared being alone with the part that thrives in solitude. You replaced the weakness they thought was permanent with the strength they never imagined you'd find. And now, you're untouchable. Not because you've built walls, but because you've built standards. That's the ultimate revenge, isn't it? Not anger, not insults, but becoming so rooted in your peace that they can't even shake you anymore. Becoming so far removed from their chaos that they no longer exist in your world. That's what you've done, and that's what they'll feel for the rest of their lives. Not your words, not your warnings, but your absence. A loud, echoing, undeniable reminder that they had something rare, and they threw it away like it was common. Let them learn. Let the silence speak.